All right, welcome in, welcome in. Let's get our Facebook groups in here before it's time to take off and run our Mile High Draft Simulator. We got 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, folks. It is the 23rd of April, Tuesday night, and it's time for an episode of Dove Valley Building the Deep Divers for Broncos. I am Nick Kendell, joined by, as always on these Tuesday shows, Carl Dumler, as well as Lance Sanderson and Erick Trickel. First, I got to say, how you doing, Carl? Looking good with that the suit jacket. What's new? What's cooking?
Well, thank you. I had to make sure my face got a little bit brighter with a dark jacket, and only thing I had in my office is a suit jacket. You know, you never know in my line of work when you got to look good. So, but no, everything is good out here. Like I said, it's draft week. How could you not be happy? And it's just a good time.
I was really hoping that you would have no shirt and we just wouldn't acknowledge it the whole show, just like you're sitting there shirtless and just we don't say a thing. But that's maybe I can keep that dream in my head. We got Lance as well. Lance, how you doing? What's new? What's good? How you doing? How are the chickens?
Well, the chickens are behind me and they're clucking and cheeping. I hope that nobody can hear them other than me right now, but we're doing good. The sourdough starter is doing great. I mean, all the conspiracy theories are starting to flow around in my head. Like I'm well on my way to becoming a homesteader, but no, for real, we're doing good. The family is good. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. And I can't wait to do this, man.
And good to see you also, Lance. It's been a bit. And of course, Erick Trickel out there in the great white northwest corner of the U.S. How you doing, Erick? It's always great to see you. This is the time of year where you truly thrive, and a lot of your hard work, all you guys, hard work comes to a culmination here in just a few short days.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Always excited this time of year, getting the roundtable mock draft and the live draft shows coming up, and just putting out yesterday my big board and draft and position rankings and getting some feedback on that already. I love this time of year, but I am ready for it to be over with and get that break.
Yeah, I feel that. And speaking of breaks, there's no breaks in here. The super chat's rolling in. We got David Carmelo, $5 super chat. Thank you guys so much. If you want to keep the shows going, and whether it be Erick, Lance, or Carl and I, or any of the Mile High Huddle shows, super chats are the number one way you can support us. And thank you so much, David. He says, if the Philadelphia Eagles offers the Broncos picks 22 and 53 this year, plus a fourth next year to come up to 12, do you accept that deal? Well, for me, it depends on what's on the board at the time. I think that's a little bit less than what the Broncos got when they moved back 10 spots in the Steelers trade back of 2019. So moving back 10 again, but 12 to 22, not the exact same as a 10 to 20. So I think that's a fair deal. What do you think, Lance?
I would want a little bit more than that, but I mean, without looking at a value chart, obviously without knowing what's on the board here, I would hope that you get a third next year. Because look at the trade that the Broncos got for the Pittsburgh Steelers to move up in 2019, where they dropped from 10 to 20 and they got the second round pick and the third round pick the following year. I think you could still get that third round pick next year from the Eagles in this, maybe even a little bit more to accept that deal. For me, I mean, if you're dead set on dropping back and just trying to play the board, this would work, but I still want more.
Yeah, and what about you, Carl? I know that you have some thoughts on trading back as well.
Yeah, so I just did the Jordan Reed mock draft. He had a similar trade to this in his for the Broncos. They got pick 50, not 53 from the Eagles in that one. And I'm with Lance. I'd want a little bit more. I think this is one of those drafts, especially after the top about 12, 13 picks, there's a drop off to that next group of players, and then another drop off after that, pretty quick after that. So I think you're going to have enough teams bidding on this spot that I think it's worth a little bit more than just getting what we saw there with David. So I would hold out for a little more, but if that's what the Broncos ended up getting, I get it. I mean, you just added more players, obviously, to your roster, got back in the second round. That would be huge for the Broncos to be able to do that in this draft. That's really pretty good for the first 3 rounds. After that drops off pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Some more super chats coming in here. Michael Ronquillo, the Ronk, good to see you. It says, good evening, Nick, Carl, Lance, and Erick on Building the Broncos with the Dove Valley Deep Divers, of course, on this round table. Good to see you, Michael. He says, go Broncos. We also got the Boogmeister coming in here saying, dang, the four amigos. What's up, guys? I'm not too mad about grabbing Zack Wilson. He didn't cost us much. Let's see how Thursday goes. I'm guessing no quarterback round one. Eric, how did you feel about that news once it came in? I was busy, hanging out with the mother-in-law and the little guy and, of course, the wife. And saw that came through about 2 hours afterwards. I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. They didn't give up anything and the Jets ate money. So I don't feel like we changed positions much other than what I like to say, a scratcher ticket.
Yeah, I mean, it's a low risk, potentially high reward there. You send a 6th-round pick for the quarterback and, a 7th-round pick. See what he can do. See if he can, sit there and fix him a little bit. And if so, well, you potentially got a starting quarterback at a cheap cost and everything, with the Jets eating some of it. And if he doesn't work out, well, you didn't give up a whole lot to go get him. So it's a mad move. It shouldn't change any of their plans come draft time. And it's just a mad move.
Yeah. Very low risk. There's a chance he's not even on the roster. So we'll see what happens there. We got some other folks coming in. Mike Woodward can't believe it. He says Zack Wilson competing with Jarrett Stidham for the starting job can't be the plan, can it? It can be a plan for one season, but it's definitely not the plan for the next 3 years. So if the Broncos have to take a place with not great quarterback play for one season, I'm personally okay with it. I know a lot of people are like, if they don't take a quarterback this year, I'm just going to lose it. But picking at 12 overall, a lot of teams around you having a lot more value. The way these quarterbacks are being evaluated as well seems like pushed up. I don't know. I've confined myself. That's the wrong word. I'm okay with it being the plan for 1 year, understanding that it's temporary and unfortunately in the Patrick Mahomes eclipse for a little bit longer. What do you think? Is this the plan here, Lance?
I don't necessarily think that it's the plan, but I think it's still a good move. Like, yeah, meh for sure. And it seems like there's been a lot of meh going on in Broncos country over the last couple of days with the uniform release. I know that there's several people that don't like it. I'm okay with it. Meh, whatever. They brought in Pat Surtain again. So yes, Nick, the throwbacks is the thing. But going back to Zack Wilson, like Eric said, I mean, you're giving up a 6th-round pick. You dropped, like 42 spots in the draft class. You really haven't given up much in terms of draft capital, except for a late day 3 flyer. But if Zack Wilson does hit that ceiling, I mean, we're talking about the former number 2 overall pick from the New York Jets. Like, this, according to some people, was the number 1 quarterback prospect in that 2021 NFL draft class. So if he can figure out how to play within the Sean Payton system, he can figure out how to play with timing, anticipation, throwing with accuracy and touch over the intermediate area of the field. If he does that, you just got yourself a starting quality quarterback for a 6th-round pick. That's like the dream scenario. I don't think that's really the plan. I still think that they are going to go get a quarterback this weekend, but at the same time, like, you at least hedged your bet, you brought in competition, and you have a high-quality upside to a player like Zack Wilson.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that has any impact. Let's say hello to some more people in here. Mike S. saying, what's up, everyone? David Youngkin saying, well, the Broncos did just trade for him, so they got their franchise quarterback. Who knows? Probably not. Todd's comes in. I did not really say that during the show last week, but I think trading for Zack Wilson means the Broncos don't think Bo Nix is going to be worth 12, and J.J. McCarthy might not be there. So if J.J. McCarthy does fall, they can make a deal. Won't be overly expensive. They will. If not, they trade down. Eric, what have you been hearing about the quarterback position for the Broncos and just overall in the league landscape right now? Because that's what everybody's interested in right now. I think, can we pencil our pen in, maybe even Sharpie in, 1 being Williams, 2 being Daniels, and then 3 being May to the Patriots?
Well, I think that 1 and 2, I think that you basically can have had them in pen for a while now. And you can probably start putting it in Sharpie, especially if you want to listen to the Vegas odds makers, who had a massive swing, I think, today with Jane Daniels being the pick at number 2. Number 3 overall, there's been a lot of, New England being willing to trade out. They're listening to offers. It's just got to be a lot for them to pass on this quarterback class that they haven't gotten yet. So if they stay put there at 3, I think they do take a quarterback, JJ McCarthy or Drake May, not sure which. If they move down, then getting those extra picks and probably just building up and punting until next year for a quarterback, and whoever moves up in their place, whether it be the Giants, who've been aggressive and trying to move up recently, or the Vikings, who've been aggressive and trying to move up for a while now. I think quarterbacks go at least 1, 2, 3.
At least 1, 2, 3. Well, we got some more folks coming in here. Paul, hello, Carl, Nick, Eric, and Lance. Boo, Iowa. All right, well, words hurt, Paul. But that's okay. We got Dylan Von Arks, of course, in the house. Good to see you. We got a face melting moment here from Conga Hydra. I don't know what's going on with that image, but I love it. Cal's here. I'm here for crime. That's good. I think we all are. Michaela says the Broncos are a crime. We got Danielle Berry Sports coming in saying, yo, everyone. Our guy, Patrick Wiltsey, coming in. And then Michael Ronquillo coming in for Adam Schefter. Not breaking news necessarily, but on here. Broncos picking up PS2's 5th-year option. Thoughts on this, Carl? Probably puts to bed any trade talks for PS2 this cycle.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the Broncos have been pretty clear from the beginning. They want to keep him around. He's a cornerstone player, building block that you can surround him and try to build up that defense with him. I like that move. And it sets up where now they can really begin the contract negotiations now. They'll have time. There's no big hurry to get this thing done. But I wouldn't be surprised if next offseason, before the 5th-year option even kicks in, that they get a deal done with him and he's here for the long term. And I hope that means he wants to be here too. That's the other big thing. You know, it's a two-way street. You want both sides wanting to have this happen. And he seems like that kind of guy. He seems pretty devoted kind of guy. So I think this will work out well for the Broncos.
And we got Rodney Garcia. Good to see you. Pearl Heater in here. Good to see you, Pearl. Ernie Mays, of course. Hello, Broncos country only. Always great to hear from you, Ernie. Greg Smith's in the house, too. We also got RK's Hairline saying most fans in the chat clearly don't know what they are talking about. I pray that Broncos do the exact opposite. Okay, RK's Hairline. Well, I think we have a pretty educated group in here, but always appreciate the fun, and we'll see what happens. Keith comes in and says, this panel could get heated. Have fun, gentlemen. We all like each other, but we also all like the sound of our own voices. So we'll keep it moving here. William comes in and says, oh my God, there's 4 of you tonight. Wow. Hello, everyone. London calling. Good to see you, William. Always fun to hear you in here. Also got our guy, Roy Osborne. Zack Wilson was way overdrafted, in my opinion. Remember, this was during the COVID years. Yeah, they played pretty much nobody out there at BYU. That was I think Michigan went like 4-4 that season or something crazy too, or 2-6. And then obviously saw them turn around. So kind of weird times. Did want to circle back around to Erick on the PS2 talks before we kick off this simulator. Do you believe, have you heard anything about the structure of contract? Obviously is going to come out of this, the highest paid defensive back ever. I think everybody can assume that. But is it something that they might rip up that 5th year and start a new deal immediately? Or are we likely to see that trend continue where it's we're going to play on that 4th and 5th year, and then it's an extension that just kicks in immediately once that 5th year option is over?
I think it's going to be one of those where we're going to play on those final years and then have that extension kick in. I mean, teams don't really like to give up some somewhat cost controlled years, even though his 5th year option is almost 20 million.
Yeah.
Still probably more than what he's going to get on his new contract, to give them a little bit of a break in the financial department there, especially with, the dead money situation over the next couple of years.
Makes sense. We'll see. We're definitely on PS2 contract watch. He's about to be a very wealthy man. Adam Strange comes and says, what's up, Broncos Maniacs? Always good to see you. Robot of Doom over on our Twitch. Shout out to our Twitch folks. Says, I see the Avengers of MHH are here. I don't know about that. I don't know which one that would make me. We also said Darren Kendall, Nicholas, don't take any knocks about Iowa. That's the old man there. Dad, unfortunately, I think he's talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes, and my dad is not a college football fan. So he'd be okay with that. He actually went to Iowa State. So not everybody's perfect. I was able to escape that black hole, luckily. But no, good to see you, Dad. Hope you're doing well. Mills says hi. Hopefully you can get out here again sometime soon. And yeah, guys, we're about to get into it here with the mock draft simulator. Obviously, the Broncos are going to be picking 12 overall. Carl, I'm going to kick it over to you. Do you have any thoughts right now on if the Broncos are going to make that trade up, or is the Zack Wilson move maybe hedging against that now? Or what are your thoughts on the potential trade up? Because we're going to do the simulator. We're not going to do trades. Broncos obviously are going to be up and down, maybe more up than down, but who knows? But thoughts about trading up from 12?
Well, I think it's going to be very tough for them to trade up. Like you said earlier, you got the Giants, you got the Vikings. They're both trying to maybe get aggressive and get up and get a quarterback. They're probably in a little bit better position. The only thing that could maybe save the Broncos there is if the Cardinals don't want to trade within the conference, which usually it's more within the division. Not really. They don't care as much about the conference. And possibly if the Cardinals look and say, hey, this Broncos team, this roster, not great. We could have a top 5 pick next year by trading with them, compared to Minnesota, who has a pretty good roster. Giants, I don't know exactly where they'd be, but you probably don't get a first round pick if you're trading from 6 to 4. You know, that extra first round pick. So that's the only way that I could see that them saying, hey, the Broncos are the better choice to make this trade with at this point. So I think the bigger and probably more probable option is the Broncos trading back. Right now, honestly, I think the last thing that they end up doing is trading it or picking at 12. Like, I think there's going to be a movement one way or the other. I think that odds are against them picking there at 12. So I know we're going to do that today here since we don't want to do trades because that gets complicated on how it all works out. But that would be my expectation, is looking to get to the early 20s and then maybe take one of the top remaining edge guys, cornerback, offensive tackle. You know, a lot of positions could be available there. Even quarterback. I know we don't want to talk about that 3-letter named guy out there in Oregon. But yeah, maybe even him there could be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, anything is on the table. We got David Carmelo coming back in saying Jordan Rannon of ESPN reported the Cardinals don't want to trade past 6. What do you think about this, Lance? This is kind of interesting to me because last year we saw the Texans trade back and then trade up, right? Am I mistaken there? Or there was the Cardinals that traded back and then traded up. But now they don't want to move past 6. Do you think it's because there is so much want for these top receivers that if they trade out of the top 6, they might not be able to get back in? It's curious to limit yourself in that type of move.
I don't know, man. With the way that Monty Austinfort worked the board last year, moving down from 3 to 12 and then back up to 6, like he could actually get it done. But the top receivers in this class, if you have eyes on Marvin Harrison Jr., you don't want to move past or Malik Neighbors, one of those two guys, the top 2 receivers in this class. You don't want to move past number 6 because I don't think you're going to get back up into that area again. So it makes a lot of sense to me. But knowing Monty Austinfort and just the willingness to wheel and deal and do what he did last year, I mean, I could see them doing something, but I believe they firmly want Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. I don't think they want Roma Dunze. They want one of those top 2 guys, so I don't see them moving back as far as everyone thinks they're going to.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. What could happen here? They might not be able to get back up if they traded back. It seems like the Bears have been interested in moving up, other teams as well. But those top 3 wide receivers and Joe Alt sound like a lot of people view them as blue chippers in this class. Have you heard anything on that front, Eric? Obviously, Denver won too many games to get any of those guys. But is that how you would analyze this, about the Cardinals limiting themselves only to trading back with the Giants, or I guess just the Giants?
I think that it would require, a lot to get him out of there, because there is one certain receiver specifically that they've been so linked with, where the Cardinals were one of 2 teams that he went and visited with, and Cardinals don't want to give him up. And with all the talk of if New England stays put at 3, they don't want to move past 4 or move past 6 and give up on that receiver, because the Giants, if they don't get one of those quarterbacks, they've been linked with that same receiver or one of the other top receivers there. The question is, what do the Chargers do? And all the beliefs that they really want to move back. And then even if they don't target the offensive tackle part of this class early on. So I think that there is something there that they don't want to move too far back, but I don't think if, Minnesota came in offering 4 first-round picks plus more, I don't think they're going to say no to that. But I just don't think that Minnesota's come in with that offer yet. And they just want to keep themselves in position to get their guy. And as we talked about, the Cardinals, that new general manager there, he likes to work the board. Moving down and then moving back up, that could always be a possibility. Move down from 4 to 11, turn and flip some of those picks to the Chargers to move back up to 5. That's something that they could do as well.
And we got KB82 coming in here with the support. It says Byron Murphy, defensive tackle from Texas, or Jared Verse, edge rusher from Florida State at 12. I think both are very possible. And if it's not quarterback for the Broncos, I think adding a piece to the defensive line seems to be the direction. Is there anybody else there, Carl, at 12 that maybe you'd be okay with, pass rusher or not?
Yeah, I would be okay with obviously Latu of UCLA. I've talked on here many times how much I really like him. I'm probably higher on him than Verse, just a little bit. I mean, they're like right next to each other in my rankings. So I would definitely put those 3 on that list of any of them. If they took him at 12, I would get it. Like, it's one of the biggest weaknesses on this team is having anybody that can get after the quarterback. And all three of those guys have shown they have that ability. So I definitely would be okay with any of them there at 12.
Yeah, Byron Murphy seems to be getting a lot of hype as of late, slowly moving up. I think his odds to go in the top 10 have gotten higher and higher. Do you think there's a chance he's the first defensive player off the board, Eric?
There's a chance. I think that we're the first spot that we're looking for that first defensive player is number 8 overall with the Falcons if they don't move back. Everything I've heard has been Dallas Turner or Terrion Arnold, but Byron Murphy could also be the pick there. I think that one of those three is going to be the first pick, and then probably the second defensive player would be among those three as well.
I will give a shout out. I think there's been a little bit of talk of Kenyon Mitchell as well, just given the athletic profile potentially up there as well. But we'll see. It's kind of that jumbled area. I wouldn't be shocked if no defensive players went in the top 10. We got Gary Palmer coming in, $9.99, says the Fab Four. Looking forward to the mock. We're going to get into that here in just a second. Gary, thank you so much for the $9.99 and helping us keep the lights on. We also got Papa Bear, David Milkelrath. Hope you're doing well, David. He says, good evening, Broncos country. Nick, Carl, Lance, and Eric, and Deacon Scott. Bowers and Rattler, Buckham 3 times, MHH for life, and Denver Broncos for life. Well, there we go. That's an interesting one. I haven't talked too much about Bowers yet, and maybe we'll get a chance here. I think, Eric, it's time to probably crank up that mock draft machine, and let's see what's going on. So if you would, before we even see who the Broncos have available here, let's see who came off the board here. So we got the Bears, number 1 overall, taking, no shock there, Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. Maybe a bit of shock here. The Commanders at number 2 overall, taking Drake May, quarterback from North Carolina. Quarterback again coming off the board here at 3 to the Patriots, Jaden Daniels. Haven't heard much Jaden Daniels Patriots talk, but hey, the simulator is going to simulate. Then next pick, we got miss number 4. We got Malik Neighbors going ahead of wide receiver LSU, going to the Cardinals. Over Marvin Harrison Jr. comes off the board next to the Chargers at 5, wide receiver Ohio State. Then at 6, 4 quarterbacks, folks. Sorry. J.J. McCarthy going there to the New York Giants, quarterback from Michigan. Then we got Joe Alt taken to the Titans there at 7 overall, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. And then a pick that I've done many times on the simulators with Scott covering the Falcons, Roma Dunze to the Falcons at 8 overall. So we got quite the offensive player run here. Roma Dunze from Washington. 9 overall, the Bears take offensive tackle Olu Fashanu from Penn State. 10 overall, we got our first defensive player off the board, somebody that maybe would have been an interest to Denver there. It was Dallas Turner there, edge rusher from Alabama. And then at 11 overall, interesting, we got Brock Bowers going to the Vikings. Haven't seen that one very much. If it's not been quarterback there, kind of like Denver, where it seems like it's pass rusher. But Brock Bowers there to the Broncos at 11. So I'm going to kick it over to Eric now to control the players left on the board. And if anybody really stands out to you, make sure you describe them for not just our visual watchers, but our listeners in the podcast form.
Yeah, so the first few that are available is Cooper DeJean out of Boo, Iowa. We have Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, Leatu Latu out of UCLA, the edge rusher there, the first 2 being corners. Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy, the 2 interior pass rushers. They're also there. And then Talise Fuaga, the tackle out of Oregon State. That's the top 5 or 6 currently available at the moment. And I can always switch and look at different positions as well if needed.
Would you scroll down just a little bit more? I'm just curious to see what some more of the board looks like there, because I feel like there's going to be some value still. Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama. Troy Fontenot, I know Dane Brugler has him in his top 10. Offensive lineman, could play all 5 spots from Washington. J.C. Latham, some people, I think it was Chris Sims, had him as one of the 2 elite tackles in this class. So he's up there as well. Right tackle, guard ability. Jared Verse is still available there. And then Amarius Mims, who's really, really interesting, but probably with the limited starts and the injury stuff, maybe a little bit too much risk. But a lot of guys on the board. I'll say it a million times if it falls like this. Nobody really is like the obvious home run pick for me here. I guess Brian Thomas also is maybe a dark horse here for Denver, needing some firepower. But Carl, I'm going to kick it over to you. Does anybody stand out as the obvious pick here?
Well, I thought I'd get to KB82's comment here because it fits with your Brian Thomas comment. And he says, I would call Buffalo about trading back. They could get the wide receiver to replace Diggs, and we can get a boatload of picks, maybe still get Knicks at 28. And I could see them really wanting to get up there. Brian Thomas, he's he is one of those players. He could end up being the best wide receiver in this draft, which is saying something. I mean, he's big, strong, fast, has good hands. He's raw. You know, he's kind of like DK Metcalf when he was coming out, where he had like 2 or 3 routes that he ran over and over again in college, and he was amazing at those. In the NFL, he's going to have to get a little bit more versatile in what he can do. But I could definitely see a couple teams really fighting for him as that 4th wide receiver coming off the board. Now for the Broncos, I mean, my guy Latu is still there. So just because he is a plug and play starter at edge, guy that you can trust that he's going to do well as long as he stays healthy. I mean, obviously we have to worry about the injury concerns with his neck that he had there before he got to UCLA. So I would worry just a little bit about that, but he's got some good size. He's not the best in the run game, which I know that's going to be something a lot of people are going to push back against him of this was the biggest weakness of the Broncos last year was the run defense. And I get it. I still think he can get better at it. He's just got to get better leverage. He's kind of a tall, lanky guy, and sometimes he doesn't stay well in his position. You know, he can get stood up a lot and get pushed back at times, and he can get out of position trying to guess where the ball's going to go. But still, most technically sound pass rusher in this draft. Like year 1, it would not surprise me if he wins Defensive Rookie of the Year because he could be a double-digit sack guy, truly that next building block for your defense. And talking about a building block, we got EJ coming in with a $100 super chat. Thank you so much, EJ, saying just a thank you for all you do year round, but especially the off season. Keep up the good work. EJ, you keep up the good work. Man, that means a lot to see that come across the screen. So it makes all the work worth it for sure of all that. I know, especially these other guys of all the articles. I know you guys go over there, My High Huddle, and see all the different articles they're putting out, and appreciate all the work you guys do with that. And so, yeah, EJ, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, EJ. God. Holy cow, that's crazy, man. Absolutely, that's insane.
Thank you so much. Had to take off the simulator for a second so Lance wouldn't be covered up by the comment because we want to see Lance's beautiful facial hair and mustache there. But Erick, I'm going to kick you. Obviously, you're senior draft analyst here for Mile High Huddle. I'm really curious what your board would look like here because it feels like a hodgepodge of guys here that I'd be more than okay with.
Yeah, if we're going off of my board, Quinton Mitchell is the best player off the top of my head that's there. I don't have my board up. But I want to touch on something Carl said about Latu and the injury concerns. People aren't as in the NFL from that with those I've talked to aren't as concerned about his neck due to the fact that it's been multiple years since injury. He's played a lot of football since then and has never had an issue. All the stuff at the medical combines at the combine with his medicals came back clean. And even if there were injury concerns, we all know George Payton loves those UCLA boys with those injury concerns. I ideally here I'm trading back. If I want to stick true to my board, I would go Mitchell. If I want to do with what I think the Broncos would do in this situation, it would be Latu.
You're thinking Latu. So we have 2 for Latu here. Lance, I'm going to kick it to you. But first, we got Rob Bucksbaum coming in here saying, evening, gents. Thanks for this. Always love watching the MHH roundtable. Either JJ May or trade down and get Knicks. We're not doing any trades in this, but certainly an option for the Broncos if they wanted to trade back and take Knicks. I'd be okay with that. I feel like 12 would be a little high. It does seem like there's a real push for Michael Penix over the last week as well, being a first rounder, with Bo being the most likely to fall out of the first round of the top guys. But we'll see, right? I mean, a year ago right now, it was, oh my gosh, there's so much smoke for Will Levis to go number 2 overall. And obviously that didn't happen. So Vegas knows Vegas wasn't built on bad bets, but also those odds are very much based on where the money's coming in right now. So we'll see what happens there. But thank you, Rob, so much for the super chat and keeping us going. We also got Phil coming in saying good evening, Nick, Carl, Lance, and Erick, and Deacon Scott. Don't know as a bonus Tuesday. Oh, it's always bonus Tuesday. Great to see all of you. Trade back at 12. Buckham, Broncos for life, MHH for life. Thank you so much, Phil. We appreciate you coming in here. Lance, I'm going to kick it over to you. I do think it's interesting that Erick's best player available is Kenyon Mitchell. And while I do not want to take cornerback no matter what, I feel like it's bad process to not take the best guy on the board, especially when they take a value position. I'm not saying take cornerback here, but I don't want to look back and there's the obvious better player and you evaluated them right, but because of where you're at position wise right now, you didn't take them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I've maintained multiple different times on Dove Valley Deep Divers that like I'm comfortable with 4 players for the Broncos at number 12 overall if they actually do stay there. The first one would be Brock Bowers. Secondly would be Byron Murphy. Third is Dallas Turner, and then fourth would be Quinion Mitchell. So like I'm comfortable with any of 3 players. Well, I guess we got Turner and Bowers off the board. I'm comfortable with Latu as well. I love his technical refinement, his hand ability as a pass rusher, and just the ability to create different counter moves. He's always active. He's always looking to create separation. And I can get behind that pick. To me, though, the obvious answer here, like I understand the Broncos need an edge rusher for sure. They absolutely need to find another 3 techniques that can get after the quarterback, that can stop the run. And Byron Murphy would be the one player that I would really pound the table for. But if we got Latu on 2, I'm comfortable with it. Like this is a player that could come in and be an immediate Batman. He could be the best pass rusher on this team immediately stepping onto the field. Forget the injury concerns, like Erick said. This player is a quality run defender. He's better than Jared Verse, in my opinion. And again, he's just going to come in and be the best edge rusher on this team right now. So Latu, with a close second to Byron Murphy, would be the guy that I would prefer.
Okay, we're going to spend obviously the most time on this selection. I did want to ask one more thing over to Erick before we go, but first want to get into Troy Boer. Agree with EJ. Thank you guys for your work you put in to discuss these players. Yeah, really, really do appreciate EJ and Troy coming in now with the heavy hitters on this show. We got David coming in too, said Byron Murphy could be a Bear at 9. He could be a Falcon at 8 as well. I mean, he's one of the ones, the odds seem to be climbing for him to be the first defensive player off the board. I liked him a lot. I wish he'd have been a little bit longer or tested like slightly better to be in that Ed Oliver category of player. A little less, but so young and super productive despite playing so many reps at one technique last year, surprisingly, on that Texas team. So really fun player. I would be really happy to have him in here. Erick, I did want to ask you before we make the pick. It does seem like it's going to be Latu. Offensive line. Is this a spot? I know you're kind of set at guard and tackle short term. Denver had the 3rd highest rate of offensive line starters playing snaps last year. Like one of the reasons the offensive line was thought of top 10 is because they had like no injuries last year, and that's not likely to happen again. It's a really good offensive tackle class, offensive line class. It drops off a cliff after the first 50 picks at tackle, 80 picks at tackle. Are you considering offensive line here? Are there anybody here that you wouldn't be shocked by for Denver?
Yeah, I would consider offensive line here. Troy Fautanu, he's one of the guys that I would, and I did pull up my board and look, and he is actually the highest rated player on my board, followed by Fuaga out of Oregon State, and then Mitchell. So there are actually 2 guys above Mitchell that I have left. And Fautanu, his ability to play all 5 spots, I mean, just adds so much value to him. You can try him out and see if he can win center and if he doesn't win the starting job, well, you have a guy who can sub in as a depth player at any of the 5 spots, and you can sit there and still work with him as a tackle if you want to replace Garrett Bowles. Does he have the ideal size? No, he's a little bit under. He's got the length, though. He just doesn't have the height, but he has the techniques and the tricks up his sleeve, so to speak, that you look for in these guys who don't meet certain size thresholds that you have. So I also would be fine going that way, but I do agree with you. I do think it is Latu based off of, what Carl and Lance have said, as well as that just really is what I think that the Broncos would do in this situation.
So Carl, Latu?
Yep.
Lance, Latu?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's do it. I think I probably would have had Byron Murphy number 1, followed by Fontenot, but I am fine with Latu. This is really, again, screaming slight trade back, please. That would be pretty great for Denver, but not doing it here. Denver getting a really technically refined pass rusher is not a bad way to go. So now we're on the board again here at pick 76. Erick, can you show some of the guys who just came off the board, just kind of showing the range that we're in, if you'd scroll up over there. So we got Marshawn Neeland, Malachi Corley, Edgerrin Cooper coming off, Marshawn Neeland, of course. Junior Colson coming off the board there, if you'd scroll down a little bit more. And we got Blake Fisher there. Sorry, Erick. Trey Benson and Devontae Walker. So now the Broncos are on the clock. We've taken an edge rusher. The top guys on the board, according to PFF, are Rook Orohiro, the defensive tackle from Clemson, Jalen Wright, who I know that Chris Thomason of the Denver Gazette has been tweeting about a lot in relation to the Denver Broncos, home run hitting running back from Tennessee. Jermaine Burton, really talented wide receiver from Alabama. If we keep scrolling down there, Erick, on the guys available. Spencer Rattler still available as well, quarterback, South Carolina. Javon Baker, UCF wide receiver. Bucky Irving, running back from Oregon. Johnny Wilson, Kalen Bullock, Ray Davis. This is where you start to really get a clump of running backs here. Jalen McMillan, Jalix Hunt is interesting as well. Keep scrolling down. Renardo Green is really interesting for me, cornerback from Florida State. So yeah, I don't really love the board here at this point. For me, I think the one that stands out, since we didn't take defensive tackle last time, I think the best guy is Rook Orohiro. I know that he's had some questionable reps as far as his ability to disengage from blockers, but he tested like a freak. He has some really good run defense snaps, and I think that he's somebody that would come in and immediately challenge for a starting spot on the defensive line, and at worst, really, really help your second string year one. And there's no positional group on any football team that rotates as much as the defensive line. So I lean Rook Orohiro here for the Denver Broncos. What do you think, Lance?
I'm going to throw out one that's going to piss off Broncos country, but I really love this player, Jermaine Burton, wide receiver out of Alabama. And I understand the Broncos right now with they just got rid of Jerry Jeudy. They just brought in Marvin Mims last year. Tim Patrick's coming back. Cortland Sutton, potentially a trade piece. Like, who knows what's going to actually look like this. When I watch Jermaine Burton, we're talking elite vertical threat. Like, he's a great player down the field. He reminds me a lot of DJ Moore for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's mostly the build and the way that he runs. Like, he's a really fun player to watch. Just wanted to give a shout out there. To me, I love Jalen Wright, Tennessee running back. This kid is explosive. I believe he's a 4.3 athlete, good receiver out of the backfield. He can create plays. This is the Alvin Kamara-esque. I'm not going to call him Alvin Kamara because they're not the same player, but Alvin Kamara-esque type of player that you can work out of the backfield as a receiver. You can run him between the tackles. You can get him on the boundary, just get him out in open space and put the football in his hands. I love Jalen Wright here. Eric, scroll down. There was a player that I wanted to talk about as well. My mind is just blown away right now. I do apologize. Spencer Rattler, obviously, who cares? Don't care. Johnny Wilson, though, is another wide receiver. Ray Davis, another. I'm going to go Jalen Wright here. That would be my preferred destination because I think that Samaje Perine probably on his way out. Salary cap casualty. Javonte Williams is a player that is in the last year of his rookie deal. I don't know if the Broncos are going to bring him back. They need to add explosiveness to this offense. Jalen Wright makes a lot of sense to me. And that's going to piss off Broncos country, but I don't care.
Nobody's invested in the running back position with volume of picks and cap space like Sean Payton has over the last in his time in the Saints. So I would get it here if the Broncos did it. Javonte Williams didn't look the same. Perine's kind of a niche guy, and I don't think they like McLaughlin as much as the Broncos fan base, hyped him up. So Eric, what are you thinking here? Pick 76 for the Denver Broncos. I see comments. Any offensive lineman? Looked like the offensive line really came off the board here. If Fisher was here, I think we'd talk about him, but alas. Yeah.
I just got to point out that there's actually a name that I know how to pronounce, Nick, that you don't. Normally it's the other way. It's Orohiro. The H's are silent. It's like row your boat. I
like it better with the Scooby-Doo and Orohiro. So the Orohiro. Yeah. Okay. What do you think here on the board though?
He's the way I would go. I would go with the defensive line. This is about the point where you start to have issues with how the defensive line class is. Running back, I'm fine waiting. Jermaine Burton, Johnny Wilson, one's more of a tight end. Jermaine Burton was often the target of the ire of his coaches at his time at Georgia and Alabama. Not sure that is a gamble that you'd want to take on, especially with the current quarterback situation. I'd go with the defensive lineman that has upside to be a high quality starter in the NFL. If you can develop him, it's a decent gamble to take, but that is the way I would go.
Yeah, we got a super coming in here from Kenneth Booker. Says, when's the earliest you would take a linebacker to place Jewel? We're running back later rounds. Would you pair it Javonte? We'll see. Tune in. Keep tuning in to the draft here about the running back spot to pair with Javonte. As far as linebacker for Jewel, I think anywhere day 2 we could start talking about that. It's going to depend more so on the board. I think you are okay in the short term with a Griffith and Barton combination. It's not great, but you're going to have to, duct tape some positions this year with the dead cap hit stuff and just the state of the roster. So you're looking day 2, but not forcing it. and also got Lawrence Rivera. I forgot Scott is in here. He is like the boy band NSYNC. Who's Justin though? You calling him Justin Timberlake? I know that he's got some fans for the looks on here. We got Kenneth Booker also says thoughts on edge Muhammad Kamara out of Colorado State. A little small, not great competition, but tested well and has some projectable traits. Carl, do you have any thoughts on Kamara?
Yeah, he's a high effort guy, high energy. Like I said, a little bit on the smaller side, probably more of a situational guy. He's a good, not great bender around the edge, I would say. I think his game's going to be a little bit more limited when he gets to the NFL game compared to what he had there in college. And I like him. Yeah. He's just a day 3, maybe like 5th, 6th round kind of guy for me. Like I said, I like him. He would add something to the room and give the Broncos some more speed to get after the quarterback, make quick plays, make teams have to respect the Broncos around the edge that way. If I'm looking for a true edge guy, I'm looking for somebody, 1, that can help in the run game, 2, that can be that true 3-down player for you. And obviously we already got that with Latu there in the first round. So I guess it's because we got him. Maybe if I pair him with this later round pick, just because you got a couple guys that are going to be gone after this season in Browning and Cooper. So you need to replenish that room with a couple more guys. I definitely wouldn't mind that move. It just depends where he's taken in the draft.
Yeah, totally. And what are you thinking about the board here for the Broncos? Who's your pick?
Well, I mean, it's got to be a Row now, since I just want to say that name. But no, the one guy, I'm still surprised that none of you guys mentioned him. Javon Baker was still there at wide receiver. And I know he's one of my favorite mid-round wide receivers in this draft. I think he's got good potential as a number 2 wide receiver, not a number 1, but I'm just thinking with Tim Patrick and his injury history, Cortland Sutton, is he here beyond this season? I don't know. So you got to start thinking about how are we going to replenish this room. And I think he would be just another nice piece to add to the room. He's a tough player. He's smart. He's pretty consistent. Makes some tough catches for you. There's a lot of his game I like. There's nothing like that sticks out and is like, oh, look at this. This one trait is great. He's just a good all-around player. And so he's another one I wouldn't mind. But a Row being there, again, he tested athletically. To add that to that defensive line that we don't have right now. We don't have that kind of player. And really just having these 2 guys for your first 2 picks to really build up the trenches, that is something Sean Payton did a lot there with the Saints. He loves building up the trenches. So honestly, I think this would be something he would be very excited about if this is how the draft fell for him.
Yeah. I'm leaning Ruka Rohuro. You're Ruka Rohuro too? Erick was Ruka Rohuro. So Lance, we like the Jalen Wright pick too. We'll see what happens with the running back spot as we move on. But for now, the next 2 picks there were that we're on the clock now with the Broncos at 121. We got Ben Sinnott, tight end from Kansas State, Isaiah Davis, running back from South Dakota State, Tavondre Sweat there, defensive lineman from Texas, Audric Estime, running back from Notre Dame, Siane Vaki, safety from Utah, Brendan Rice, wide receiver from USC, Trevor Keegan, guard Michigan, Tommy Eichenberg, Tanner Bordellini there, center from Wisconsin. Mekhi Wingo stands out. Cole Bishop, a really good safety prospect as well. Jarvis Brownlee, Theo Johnson. So some interesting names here. For me, the one that stands out is probably somebody that I came to a little bit later, but I absolutely adore is Ben Sinnott. I know the Broncos have been looking for playmaker. I mean, almost unprompted. I think it was Peyton mentioned it, George Peyton at the Combine press conference, that they need a little bit more pass catching from the tight end spot. Sinnott is not like, a hulking tight end by any means, but he can block and he can do stuff after the catch. I think he'd be really good in a team that likes to utilize 2 tight end sets. Sweat scares me a bit. I know there's a lot of questions about his maturity, partied a lot, the weight fluctuation stuff too, the conditioning in Denver, and then getting a DUI. He had a crazy high blood alcohol content when he was arrested. I think his blood alcohol was taken like 2 hours after being arrested. So it was even higher when he was arrested. So I'm pretty not in on Sweat, even though I would love the defensive tackle. We just took one. For me, Ben Sinnott is the one I'm leaning for here. Get another weapon and help the offense. And thanks, Lawrence, for the comment. I'm gonna kick it to Carl since you were last time. What are you thinking here? Let's keep it quick because now we're day 3. We got to be like ESPN where they're firing off here.
Man, I hate to have to like a K-State player, but I'm with you. I do like his game. He's a pretty smooth player. He's not the most athletic, but he's not bad in that category either. And I think he has some versatility to play inside, outside for tight end. He'd at least improve the room. And it's something the Broncos desperately need there for that offense. So I definitely probably lean that way. Sweat, like you said, if he hadn't had the DUI, man, it would be great just to completely rebuild that entire defensive line and add somebody that big to really stuff the run and allow those other guys to go out there and do what they want to do. But it's too scary. And then, like I said, the weight thing. Anytime you add a guy that big, I keep thinking of pot roast for the Broncos when, back in 2012, 13 kind of area, like later in the season when he got in shape, he was a great player. But you had to wait 8 weeks for him to get to that place where he was actually in shape to do something on the field. And that really bothered me that he always put on so much weight the offseason. So Sonata's for me.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, this is starting to look very similar to my final mock draft, which should be out, I think, tomorrow. And I will spoil a brief thing about it. I do go Sweat in this range, but that is because the guy that I would have preferred here wasn't available, and that is Ben Sinnott. Man, if I have to go through another season watching a lot of Adam Trotman, I don't think I can do that. He was awful. Give me somebody at least to bring some hope to the position. Yeah, I would go Ben Sinnott here. I think this is decent value for him.
Is there any thought for Theo Johnson here as well, still on the board? Tested better. I think he's a little bit Noah Fant-esque where he's like super linear, but I think maybe a little bit more blocking potential as well. They used him a lot of ways. You definitely send it over Theo Johnson.
No, not for me. Too similar to Noah Fant. I don't like those linear tight ends really a whole lot. I think Sinnott brings a little bit more versatility with where you can line him up at, and can potentially, I think Michael Burton's on the final year of his deal. Well, Ben Sinnott can also line up as a fullback for those limited times that we use a fullback.
And Lance, what do you think here?
This is a little rich for Ben Sinnott for me, but at the same time, I agree with both of these guys. Like versatility, like you can line him up in the backfield, you can line him up as an H-back. I compare him to Chris Cooley favorably, and overly athletic kind of smaller tight end that can play with physicality at the point of attack. I love Ben Sinnott. The guy that I would throw out here as an alternate, if we weren't all on Ben Sinnott here, I'm here for this. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. You need another cornerback. I understand the Broncos. The Broncos just brought in Levi Wallace. They still have high hopes, at least what it sounds like for Riley Moss from last season. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is a physical presence at the point of attack. He's one of the best press man coverage cornerbacks in this class, and he would be a great pair to add on the outside for to go along with Pat Surtain with his 5th-year option now. Like, I'm here for Sinnott, but Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is hard for me to pass up here, dude. I love that player.
Yeah, really good player, no doubt. We made the pick there. We're on to now round 5. Top guys available are Theo Johnson still there, Tanner Bornolini, Cole Bishop, safety from Utah. We got Leafu, linebacker from Notre Dame. I know he's really highly thought of. Kamara still there from Colorado State. Mason Smith, the LSU. Caden Wallace, tackle, Penn State. Smith Wade from Washington State. Isaiah Williams, Will Shipley, Luke McCaffrey, and a lot of people love him. Cornelius Johnson, Malik Mustafa, really interesting player. Gabriel Murphy, Cedric Gray. Kind of falls off a little bit there. For me, I'll toss out mine first here quickly. I mean, the way Tanner Bornolini tested, I know that he went from guard to center, and there's some balance issues there on tape for me because he's on the ground a little too often. But I mean, the short shuttle, the athleticism, it's so high. And round 5 to get a center here, that's the Denver's biggest question on the offense, without a doubt. I'd be totally fine with Tanner Bornolini. If not Tanner Bornolini, honestly, there's a couple safeties here that I really like. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I love Tanner Bornolini's tape. I just don't like him for what Sean Payton does. There are serious core strength issues and power issues in general. If I'm going offensive line, I would go and get a developmental tackle in Caden Wallace. But there's a safety here that I really like in Malik Mustafa. I absolutely love his tape.
Yes.
like the safety room for the Broncos. I don't like betting on a guy who's played less than 600 snaps in 3 years with 2 injuries in 2 season-ending injuries in consecutive seasons, a guy who's barely played, and a guy who was a rotational piece. I don't like betting on that. Malik Mustafa is actually probably where I would go, even though I kind of want to get an offensive tackle in this range. But I do know that we have 2 picks coming up in 145 and 147 that I could also look at getting a tackle at one of those.
I am totally fine with Malik Mustafa. Lance, nice and quick here. What are we thinking here? End of day 3.
I'm all aboard the Malik Mustafa's train. You can line him up as a single high safety. He's got enough range there. He can line down in the slot. He's a quality run defender. He's one of the better tacklers at the safety position. That's my dude right now. I'm here for that. Shout out Gabriel Murphy, though. I want to pair the UCLA edge defenders together because Latu's hands are great. Gabriel Murphy has great leverage and hand placement. He's small for sure, but I don't give a damn. That dude's a football player, and he's a football playing Jesse, man.
What do you think, Carl? You also okay with Malik Mustafa?
Yeah, that's fine. And like Eric said,
Let's do it.
That safety room is not done right now.
No.
Like you need to still add some more pieces to that group if you can. Get as much competition as you can.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we got Todd Ostendorf said, skip drafting a quarterback altogether. I ain't with that. I think it was James Palmer today doing an interview saying that after the first 6 or 7 quarterbacks drafted, we might not see another one drafted until the 7th round. I don't know if that's just kind of how the league is viewing these guys or whatever. But if you miss out on that first crop, I don't know. I'm interested enough in Rattler's talent if the background stuff checks out, but you can't say that without the background stuff. So it might happen. This is kind of in the Zack Wilson era where Zack Wilson's kind of a day 3 flyer at this point. That's your day 3 quarterback flyer for the room. At least that's how I'm viewing it. We're on the pick here for 145. Theo Johnson's still there. Caden Wallace, I'm interested in him for sure. Will Shipley, we haven't taken a running back yet. He'd be interesting. Luke McCaffrey's still there also, looking at wide receiver. Maybe we give the people what they want in what we haven't taken a wide receiver yet. DJ James is a really interesting cornerback option as well for the Broncos. Christian Jones has some tackle and guard ability. Cam Hart's another cornerback that I know Denver, I think, maybe even brought in for a visit. Jalen Coker, I know, has got some fans. Zach Zinter, Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint. I wish he tested a little bit better. The one who I think, honestly, I'm going to give the people what they want. I'm going to say I'm going to go Luke McCaffrey here for wide receiver. I know that I might be outruined because I'm fine with Caden Wallace too, but you need more wide receivers, and I'd be behind. Let's give the people what they want with Luke McCaffrey.
I think that here I would go with Caden Wallace. We pick again. There's 146 and we're back on the clock. There are 3 or 4 receivers that I saw that I would be fine with, even though it may not be Luke McCaffrey. I'd go with the tackle here because after Caden Wallace, the tackle class really drops off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's do it. Everybody fine with that? Let's move it quickly. Let's see what else is there since we got 147 coming up. Let's do Caden Wallace here really quick. Eric, can you tell me about Caden Wallace?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he gets overshadowed a lot by playing opposite Fashanu. There's a lot of technical refinement that needs to be done. He's got a lot of the tools and the traits that you want to work with. It's just refining that technique. I think he can flip sides. I think he can play inside at guard as well. His pad level is not ideal, but it's not terrible. Again, it's just refining what he has, developing him a little bit more. And I think that if you can get that done, I think he's more than capable of being a starter next season.
Very interesting. All right, we're on the pick here for 147. Luke McCaffrey, send it. Who are the other options that you were talking about there, Eric?
I actually like Jaquan Jackson a lot more than Luke McCaffrey here. And the other receiver was a little bit farther down in Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint. I do wish that he tested better, but man, give me a blocker on the outside for a change. Like that, I like his. Again, I wish he tested better, but his blocking, it's some of the best in this class. And with this offense, especially in this scenario where we don't have a quarterback, rely on the run game and give me that reliable blocker on the outside that some of these other receivers just aren't.
Well, I still lean McCaffrey. I thought he did really well at the Senior Bowl and the athletic testing as well. So that would be my move on this one. Denver brought him in as well. Carl, you're the wide receiver guy. Break this tie.
I'll go Luke McCaffrey as well. I think his best days are ahead of him. You know, you have to remember he went to college playing quarterback for his first couple of years at Nebraska before he started making that change. So it's still kind of, he played a little bit of wide receiver in high school when he was freshman and sophomore and his brother was the quarterback. So I think, I mean, he knows the position a little bit, but it's still, I think his best days are ahead of him. He's got good size. I think he's got versatility to play outside, inside. And I think he's a very, very smart player. So I think, like I said, I think his best days are ahead of him. And it is a little bit of a nostalgic thing, but I still think this is where he probably goes pretty close in the draft too.
I was just going to ask, if his last name wasn't McCaffrey, would you still value him in this spot based off the play?
I would.
Yes.
I think with the athleticism and what I saw at the Senior Bowl, I would.
I don't know that
Rice
I would.
throwing it up around the yard too.
I don't know. I don't know that I would, quite honestly. He's still a little bit too raw as a route runner. I need to see some better separation ability. Like, yeah, he relies on that athleticism, but he needs to severely develop. A guy like Jaquan Jackson, who's a shifty slot receiver with punt return and versatility, and he's a tough player too. Like that dude takes a lot of hits. Marcus Rosemy-Jackson is my dude though. Like that, I did the whole my guys thing. Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, that blocking ability, the ability to just go up and win those contested catches if you need him to. He doesn't show the best separation ability, but you don't need to separate when you have length like that and the ability to just go and get the football. So I'll push back a little bit. I mean, I'm okay with Luke McCaffrey here. I think he brings you a little bit more versatility, can play inside and outside, but I'm way lower on McCaffrey than the general consensus here.
Yeah, I'm gonna lock in McCaffrey here, even though I would say it's a 2-2 tie. Chats, you guys are the tiebreaker, and there's a lot of McCaffrey, so that wins out. You guys break the tie. Luke McCaffrey it is.
Let me just add this, because you mentioned he's not quite as ready right now, which I would agree with, but I'm not looking at him for this year. Like, you still have Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims. You've got these other guys for depth. I'm looking at who do I think is going to be best in year 2, 3, 4. And like I said, with McCaffrey, in my view, has some pretty decent upside. I lean to that idea that he could still have his best football ahead and become a very solid number 2 for you on the outside.
All right. Well, we're now on the clock with round 6. We got 207 and 256. We got to let it fly here. We Trey Taylor stands out for me, safety. I know Rasheen Ali's got some fans as well. Dylan Lobby was a really interesting player as far as a pivot piece, I guess. Can be good in the pass game. Would you scroll down there, Eric? Keith Randolph, interesting opposite of Johnny Newton. Dylan Johnson, I love the talk about blocking. He's been good. AJ Barner, Jordan Jefferson, Carson Steele. And there's a quarterback, Joe Milton, if we want to take a tight end quarterback mix. You got Christian Boyd as well, stands out here. Tyler Owens was the one. I think he had the unbelievable combine jumping drills. But anybody stand out here for you, Lance? Who are you thinking? Let's make it quick.
So if you want to go inside-outside versatility with an offensive lineman, you got Sada Owelomea out of Utah. I saw that name down there a little bit. Dylan Lobbe makes a lot of sense here because you've got slot versatility as a receiver. You can bring that passing versatility out of the backfield. I like Trey Taylor a lot. Eric, is there? You might need to search a name here. Is Tyrone Tracy available, the running back out of Purdue? No, he's gone. Okay, well then that would go to Lobbe for me here. I think that's probably my preferred pick. I like Rasheen Ali, but I think Lobbe's receiving versatility would probably be the direction that I would go in here.
Eric?
Yeah, the Broncos, they've been linked with multiple running backs. They want to add more to the room. There's a chance they move on from P. Ryan this year. There's a chance that they allow Javonte Williams to walk next year. They want to also upgrade over Jaleel McLaughlin. They weren't super happy with how his season went. Dylan Lobbe or even Rasheen Ali. I think Rasheen Ali would be drafted a lot higher if he didn't have an injury, I believe, late in the season and has been missing the whole process. So I would go with one of those two running backs. Trey Taylor, he would stand out if we didn't already take a safety.
Yeah, good special teams ability there for Trey Taylor. But let's go Lobby. Pass catching, we don't really have that out of the backfield besides P. Ryan right now. And I mean, heck, he made Russell Wilson look pretty good last year a lot of times, but we can add a little bit to the room. We're on the board again here with the last pick. Austin Reed, kicker Cam Little there. We got Hardy from Penn State. Of course, Sam Hartman still available. Delmar Glaze, Kendall Milton, Olafashio available as well. Honestly, Olafashio is probably my pick, just standing out here immediately.
Yeah.
But I like him a lot.
Yep.
I know that he's a little smaller, not an incredible athlete. We're talking round 7 here. Denver needs a linebacker for the room. He stands out. Of course, we're talking round 7. Haven't done many 7-round picks. Just got this one from the Jets in the Zack Wilson trade. Does anybody stand out elsewise? I know you guys, Lance and Eric, just pumped their fists. So I'm going to kick it to Carl here, besides Olafashio.
I mean, obviously, part of me is thinking punter a little bit.
Yeah.
Just I would love to have a little bit of competition for the Broncos that way. And a 7th round pick, I mean, that's a nice place to start looking in that kind of direction. I know the Iowa boy already got picked. I saw that earlier, so I wouldn't have a chance at him. But no, linebacker, I think especially 7th round, because this is where you're looking for special teams help. And linebackers, safeties, those are the type of guys that really can still make the roster and make an impact year one. Not as a starter, but as, like I said, as special teams make their way, and then hopefully you build them up as they go. So I think Olafashio would be a great pick here for the Broncos. Like I said, special teams help day one, hope maybe possible starter down the road.
Yeah. I actually had a 4th round grade on Olafashio. Like, I think that his heat-seeking missile ability, his athleticism, he can take the football away in pass coverage. But the big thing is special teams. Right now, with the new kickoff rules, you want a guy that has this kind of athleticism and just the ball tracing ability. Olafashio is such a great pick right here. Like, this is way too low, in my opinion, for him to be here. But you want to give me a draft gem like this, I'm here for it.
Yeah, scrolling down, he just really stood out there as the obvious guy for me. So let's lock it in, Eric, as you click it. What do you think about Olafashio?
He's an Alaskan. It's the best pick of this draft.
Wow. Okay. Well, I would have knocked him down a little bit there for me, but that's okay.
Well, that's Iowa. That's Iowa players.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Excuse me. We got PFF saying that, hey, you should have taken Mitchell instead of Latu. Not this time, folks. Not this time. That's okay. Michael Ronquillo coming in here with the super chat. Thank you, Michael, as we close that one out. And let's look at our board here. We got Latu, Arohoro, Ben Sanat, Malik Mustafa, Caden Wallace, Luke McCaffrey coming in, Dylan Lobby, and Olafashio. Overall, they didn't like the Mustafa ones, but hey, you know what? That's okay. And really, I mean, you hit everything but quarterback in this draft. I mean, wide receiver at halfback, tight end, safety, defensive line, linebacker. I mean, we hit almost like every single spot. So I think the value played out pretty well. Carl, what's your favorite pick of the group?
I think Arohoro there in the 3rd round. Just, again, I think he has some incredible high upside. And to get a guy with that athleticism on the interior, like there's a lot of defensive linemen there. It's kind of almost like a dime a dozen, those 300-pounders you can stick in the middle. They're all going to play about at that same level. Finding that other kind of player is such a big deal. You know, obviously Chris Jones, those kind of players. And I'm not saying that Arohoro is that player, but he has actual potential to become that player. And so, like I said, I think that's why for me, I really like that pick. I really like just the work the Broncos did on the trenches in this draft for the defense, because that was such a problem last year. I think both these picks really improved that unit big time moving forward.
Favorite spot, Lance?
It's the one I was the most conflicted about, quite honestly, but round 4, number 121, Ben Sanat. That was my dude. I actually pulled up my my guys on my Twitter account. You guys can find it at LanceS_MHH. We got Marcus Rosemary Jack Saint was one that I wanted, but we got Ben Sanat here, and the 3rd guy that I had in that particular area was Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I was so back and forth with Sanat and Brownlee Jr., but Ben Sanat, dude, I love this player. I think that he brings a different kind of versatility to this offense that is not going to be that they don't currently already have, and he could be a day one starter for this roster, especially with all the injury concerns to damn it, the UCLA kid. Why is his name? Greg Dulcich. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize, but yeah, Sanat is probably the guy that I like the most out of this class so far.
Yeah, and looking at the board, we have a super chat here from Ken saying, "Where did Knicks end up? Not in the 1st round, so we cannot see it. Not round 1. I don't know. We'll see if that comes to fruition.
In the mid 40s. I caught it when I scrolled up one of the times.
In the mid 40s.
Somewhere in the mid 40s.
Anywhere from 30 to 50. I think we have a possibility there. Eric, before wrapping it up, final thoughts here on this draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good overall. I mean, obviously, at some point, I would like to add a quarterback, not at pick 12, especially not Bo Nix at pick 12. my favorite pick would be Rook Ororo. I'm a big fan of his. The more I watch, the more, in love I fell with him. One of my draft crushes this year. And of course, Ula Foshio. I have a higher grade on him than this, not just because he's an Alaskan. And that's just got to play up the joke a little bit. But no, I've talked to a lot of people who've known him as he was growing up and everything. And just nothing but praise for the kid. Ended up moving to I want to say Nevada.
I think at Vegas. You went to Vegas.
To play high school football there and step up a level. But he had a story at the combine about running into a moose on his way to school. But yeah, that's one of my favorite picks. And honestly, out of all the years we've done this is the one mock draft where there's not a single pick that really stands out as like, I really do not like that one.
Well, good. Yeah, Ruka Rohiro and Ben Sinnott are probably my favorite two values of this as well, and areas that I'm hoping to take advantage of the class. Round 4 tight end, that's a good spot this year for that position, and getting probably the last of that quality defensive tackle class there at 76. So overall, pat yourself on the back, guys. We'll see what happens. I know the Broncos didn't get a quarterback this one, but guess what? If they don't get it this year, they're kicking the can. I know nobody wants to hear that, but Denver being 5.5 wins over under according to Vegas this year, probably not a 5th quarterback off the board away from being a playoff contender this season. So we'll see what happens then next year. We will see if they go out for a quarterback. Maybe we get in Dak watch. Maybe no effing Dak ever. I don't know. He 280 passing yards and 2 touchdowns per games in the playoffs, but that's whatever. But we'll have a chance to talk about that at another point. Guys, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun tonight. I want to give a shout out to all our stars that came in so much. David Carmelo, Michael Ronquillo, the Boogmeister, Darren Kendall, Kenneth Booker a few times, Gary Palmer, David Meckelrath, EJ with the massive one here, $100. Thank you so much. Rob Bucksbaum, Phil McLaughlin, Troy Boer, also a huge one, $49.99. We also had Kenneth Booker a lot, Lawrence Vera coming in, hanging out, and Michael Ronquillo. I know I said you again, but Michael's the sunrise sunset, closing us out and starting us up. So we appreciate you so much. Make sure you guys are following us all on Twitter. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Carl's at Carl Dumler MHH. Erick's at Erick Trickel, and Lance is at Sanderson MHH. Also, make sure you got.
I typed in the wrong. It's at Lance S _ MHH. I typed in the wrong. Sorry.
Okay.
Correct that. Sanderson
Say it again, but slower.
So at Lance S _ MHH is my actual handle. For some reason, it typed in the wrong way on this. So no, at Lance S _ MHH. The Sanderson MHH one got hacked a long time ago, and I have not been able to recover it.
All right. Well, I remember that. I didn't know if that was that one, but thank you for correcting me and setting me up for failure. No, we also follow us at Mile High Huddle, of course, at facebook.com / Mile High Huddle and facebook.com / Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. Erick, looks like you had something to say.
Yeah, just quick, scheduling information. Tomorrow, everything would be normal. The normal show, normal time. We will be live Thursday for the live draft show. It'll be Chad, Zach, and I to kick it off, and then we'll start rotating people in. And then Friday night and Saturday, it'll be a combination of Lance and myself, both days throughout the whole draft, with other people rotating in. So draft is almost here, and you guys are about to see a lot more of my face than you probably want to.
Well, you got a face for radio. We appreciate all you guys. Love you. That's going to wrap it up again. We will see you guys again soon. Hopefully you enjoy that. If you have any criticisms, direct them Erick's way. If you have any praise, you can get at me. Love you guys. It'll be a lot of fun, and all this hard work coming to a close. I'm excited for it. But until then, make sure you guys are choosing kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.